I've got a great guest for today's show, but before I introduce her, I'm going to lay some numbers on you. Now, these are impressive numbers that you'll be able to use to talk to non-endemic brands about sponsoring you. So if you're doing something else while you listen to this, pay close attention to this part. In 2019, 17% of the U.S. population ages 6 and up went fishing at least once. That's 50.1 million people. And that number represents the highest participation rate since 2007. Freshwater fishing attracted 39.2 million participants. Saltwater fishing attracted 11.2 million people. And get this, people who went freshwater fishing took an average of 16.1 trips per person over that year. So that's 631 million fishing trips in 2019. Just wow. I think part of the reason for this growth in fishing is because of today's guest, although she would probably never, ever say that. Actually, it's the organization she works for and her marketing leadership that I think has a big effect on growing the numbers in fishing participation. I'm talking about the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation and its Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Stephanie Vatalaro. Stephanie is about as impressive a person as you find in business, and she's an absolute rock star for the fishing and boating industries. She's a smart marketer and a sharp business person. I'm really excited to introduce you guys to her. She uses anglers of all stripes for her content and her marketing efforts, and I know you'll learn a lot from her. I feel like I learn something new from her every time we interact. You might better recognize the RBFF's consumer-facing brand, which is called takemefishing.org. They've done some incredible commercials that you've probably seen on TV that just tug at the heartstrings, and obviously they're very effective. We watch them and we all want to take somebody fishing after we see them. So here we go, y'all. Stephanie Vatalaro from the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. All right, Stephanie Vatalaro, our guest today on the Fishing Business Podcast. Stephanie is with the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. I always want to say it backwards. I always try to put fishing first, which is right, but it is my nature. Stephanie, we've known each other for a little while, and I'm so impressed with everything that the RBFF does. Can you talk a little bit, though, in case some of our listeners don't know about the RBFF, the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, can you talk a little bit about what y'all do, what your mission is, and what you do within that role?
I would be happy to talk about RBFF. The Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation is a national nonprofit organization, and our mission is to increase participation in recreational fishing and boating. We exist as kind of this marketing and education arm for the industry. So we are trying to get newcomers into the sport, trying to get them to stick with it so that the industry has customers.
I love it. You guys do a great job of that. Every year at ICAST, which is our annual trade show for the fishing industry, RBFF usually gives a presentation during the keynote presentation where you kind of sum up everything that you've done for the year. And it's always so impressive to me how you guys do that. You're very organized, and yet you have a somewhat small staff.
We do. We have about 17 people on our staff, but we contract out a lot. We work with an advertising agency. We work with an agency who does our search engine optimization. So we have more people than you see on the
But
surface.
you do the big picture stuff, like coming up with the programs and who you're going to target is done by you based on research, right? Maybe not you specifically, but by your staff based on research, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of experts on our staff in the various digital marketing and advertising and public relations and social media. So yeah, we really work with the agencies to develop those strategies and get them off the ground.
And how is RBFF funded?
We receive a grant. We compete for our funding, actually.
Wow.
That hasn't always been that way. Back in 1998, there was a concern that fishing participation was declining. And fishing, unlike a lot of other outdoor activities, is linked to conservation. So when you buy your fishing license, when you buy fishing tackle, money goes back to the state Fish and Wildlife agencies, or DNRs, some people call them, to do conservation work like stocking the fisheries and habitat work and clean waters and boat ramps and all of that good stuff. So when we were established, we were created as the RBFF, and we didn't compete for our funding. But somewhere along the way, something changed in the government structure, and I think it was around 2007 we started competing for it. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service administers the grant. And yeah, it comes from the Sportfish Restoration and Boating Trust Fund is where the money comes from.
That is
we get
such
2% of that fund.
You get how much?
We get 2% of that fund, and it equates to anywhere each year from around 10 to 12 million.
That fund is so important to our industry. I don't know if everybody understands how important that is, but it is crucial to a lot of the things that we do to keep our sport and keep our hobby and our recreation viable. Wouldn't you agree?
It is. It does a lot. And, I was talking about the license fees and the tackle, and that's where that money goes. It goes into this big SFR, they call it, Sportfish Restoration, and gets doled out to a lot of different organizations. In addition to RBFF, there's boating safety programs. The states get it for that conservation work. So yeah, it's really important. It's unique to our industry. You're really paying to play and taking care of that resource that you love so much.
It is. Now, are we ever worried about it, that someone's going to see that money sitting over there in DC and say, hey, let's try to get some of that? I mean, it doesn't seem like that has happened, has it?
It hasn't. I mean, certainly there's always some chance that it could be taken away, but it's been pretty steady for over 20 years now. So we're hoping it stays that way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So quick question. How has the COVID crisis affected you? I've heard from a lot of people in the industry that the fishing industry has benefited from a lot of sales are up. A lot of people are trying fishing for the first time. And I think they may have seen some proof that indicates participation is up. What have you guys seen from your end?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts how high the numbers are, and we're anticipating an increase in participation this year. Hard to say how much, but when things really started happening back in March, we prepared for the worst. Nobody knew it was going to happen.
Right.
And we're looking at our metrics and we're trying to project what kind of losses we're going to take, and then we start following all of these metrics because we host a website that has like how-to information, where-to information to help people get started and get on the water. And, after a few weeks of kind of stagnant traffic there, things really started to go up, like crazy higher than we've ever seen.
Well, that's great.
And I mean, I can say this stat just blows me away, and it should blow everyone away. Last year, we had 18 million visits to all of our digital properties. So that's 18 million times that people came to the site looking for fishing or boating information. This year, our fiscal starts April 1. So from April 1 through mid-July, we're already approaching 21 million.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy. Well, let me ask you this. Can you tell, are they looking at, because I know you have the how to find a boat ramp close to you.
Yep.
Are a lot of people looking for that?
A lot of people are looking for places to go.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the reasons that fishing has thrived in this environment that we're in with the pandemic, because it is something you can do close to home. It is something you can do socially distanced and in small groups, right? It's kind of the perfect match.
It is the perfect match, and you can get out of the house.
You can get out of the house, and time in nature has so many great health benefits, mental health, physical health.
Absolutely. I agree. So I know you're the marketing. Are you the marketing director, senior director of marketing?
Marketing and communications. I oversee that for the company.
Okay, so because I know a lot of our listeners aren't as familiar with the business roles and how marketing works, as if I'm from another planet, how would you explain to an alien what you do?
Oh wow, that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
How would I explain to an alien? We try to create awareness of fishing and boating. We want to get it in front of people who maybe have never done it before, get them interested enough in it that they want to go try it. And then we provide the resources for them to get started. So we're creating awareness, trial, and interest essentially in the activity and trying to grow it for future generations.
And then what about your role specifically though, Stephanie? So what does every day look like for you? Are you just always coming up with new cool ideas, or are you just always crunching numbers, or are you doing a little bit of everything?
Oh my gosh. It's kind of a little bit of everything. And there's some seasonal stuff, of course. We're in the middle of our marketing plan right now. So everything's in the market. So there's a lot of focus on metrics, seeing what's working, what's not, tweaking some of the digital stuff that we can. Pretty soon, believe it or not, we'll be entering planning for the next year. And we go through that process in January with our board. And then come spring, when our fiscal year starts again, that's when all the creative execution, all the fun ideas take place.
Right. So you are a little bit different, and then you have a April 1 fiscal?
We do.
And so do a lot of people that depend on government funding have April 1 fiscals?
The government fiscal, I think, is October 1. So no, I'm not sure why that was set that way, but it's been that way since we were founded. So
yeah, a lot of tourism agencies have April 1 fiscals too. So I just thought it might have something to do with maybe the government gets their funding done, and then it takes a while to, have everything in place.
Well, it could be, because we do get that funding right,
right,
as we're headed into our fiscal for sure.
So you started out working in local news.
I did.
Right. So how has that experience informed your career in marketing?
Oh, it was fabulous. College student, right out of school, I thought I wanted to be the next Katie Couric.
Yeah.
And I found that in TV news, I know you have some experience in this too. You typically start out in the really small markets, not making that much money, and you work your way up. And that can happen very quickly. But after getting into it for a while, I was like, oh, this is not for me.
Yeah.
However, it's been invaluable in terms of a career in marketing and PR and communications, because it gave me that inside look at the newsroom and an understanding of the news cycle and how it works. And so I feel like, even though it was a long time ago now, I can have better relationships with the people that work there.
Right.
When I'm trying to place a story or whatnot. Because I do have an understanding of how that works. And I got some video editing experience, which, it's totally different now, but I at least understand the concepts, and it's really helped.
That's awesome. I love that. A lot of the people that I've spoken to on the podcast who are working in the outdoors industry started in retail. And I think that's a great way to start too, because it really, once you understand, how the customers think and how brands try to reach customers, it can really help you as a marketer. But I certainly think a background, even today, especially a background that has anything to do with content creation, is very valuable.
Yeah, and that's news has really turned into, in a lot of ways, content creation. And your traditional diehards don't like to hear that. No, it's the news, it's not content. But those folks who came up in that world are doing a lot of amazing content creation now. So yeah.
That's right, including you. In a roundabout way. All right, we're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back with Stephanie Vatalaro from the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. Be right back. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, check out fishingbusinessschool.com, where you can see video uploads of the podcast, as well as my blog, where I give you more practical advice on the business side of fishing. fishingbusinessschool.com. Come see me over there. All right, we're back on the Fishing Business Podcast with Stephanie Vatalaro from the RBFF. And Stephanie, I think I'm right. You grew up in Florida, right?
I did.
Okay,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was born in Ohio, but we moved to the Florida Keys when I was 7. So
Stop. You grew up in the Keys?
I did. Islamorada.
Oh, my favorite. I love Islamorada. I have some really good friends there and have done a lot of fishing out of the Lorelei.
Oh, yes, of course.
That is like the Keys fishing capital, the Lorelei.
They recently debuted a new Lorelei. It was like a big thing in the community.
Oh, really? Well, I'll have to go.
The artist, Wyland, painted a new one.
Oh, great. Well, because I bet it got damaged in the storm, didn't it?
It may have.
Yeah, I bet it did. Well, that's awesome. So I'm assuming if you grew up in the Keys, then boating and fishing are probably a big part of your childhood growing up.
Totally. My dad is actually a flats fishing guide. So
oh my gosh.
I spent a lot of time on the water growing up, though, I was a kid too. So I went to school. People are like, were you on the water all the time? I'm like, well, I went to school and I did my homework and I had dance and all these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the weekends, certainly spent a lot of time doing some saltwater fishing and water sports.
Well, we'll have to compare notes later because I have several friends who are flats fishing guides, 10, 20 years ago. So I bet your dad knows some of them.
Probably, yeah.
And you may too. So tell me a little bit, how did this opportunity come along to work for the RBFF? How did you get into the right doors there?
Well, it's interesting. So much comes from relationships. I'm a big believer in relationships giving you opportunity at almost every stage in life. And my husband had started working for Boat US, and he heard of the job first and passed it along to me. And it's kind of a funny story. I won't get into all the details, but I hadn't been in my existing job for very long. But it was downtown DC, which was a little bit of a commute for me. And when I started it, it wasn't really I wasn't connecting with it the way I had hoped.
Oh.
So I hear about this opportunity to work for a fishing and boating organization. I'm like, okay.
Perfect.
And then it's like a mile and a half from my house. And when you live in a major metropolitan area, that is like the commute of dreams, right?
Especially DC area.
So I went for it, and long story short, I got it, and I'm coming up on 14 years.
Wow. Well, you do a great job at it, and I've always been so impressed with how smart you are, and what a great communicator you are. You really are a good communicator. I'll tell a quick story on you. We were at ICAST a couple of years ago, and Stephanie was one of the keynote speakers at the industry breakfast, and the projector went out. Right? Was it the projector?
There was no sound on the video.
That's right. There was no sound on the video. So she talked through it like it and never missed a beat. I mean, it was like she had planned it the whole time. And that's really when you're in front of a lot of people, and especially that room, because every leader in the industry is there, that had to be nerve-wracking for you.
It was a little bit, but so this year ICAST was virtual.
Yeah.
And we pre-recorded videos for that. And I have to say, I am actually more comfortable on a stage in front of hundreds of people than I was
doing it,
behind the camera, just recording, because I felt like I couldn't see the crowd's reaction. And I don't know.
Yeah. It is a little different. You get an energy. From the live.
You can sort of feed off of it. So I didn't know what else to do. And, it's such a big venue that I couldn't see the people in the back to know if they were going to fix it or not. So I didn't know how long I should wait. But it all worked out in the end.
You did good. That's thinking on your feet. So, marketing changes all the time. We've seen this huge rise in social media, and that certainly changes. Golly, it seems like it changes weekly. So what do you do to continue to learn and grow as a marketer? I'm just curious how you do that.
A couple things. I mean, I am fortunate that we work with these large agencies who
You're right. That's a plus.
They're doing a lot of that, and they're bringing a lot of it to us, the research, the insights and whatnot. But I'm also a big believer in continuing education. One thing that I make sure everyone on my staff has is a membership to an association that can improve their skills and get them thinking about new ideas. So a lot of my folks belong to the American Marketing Association.
Oh, that's great.
There's a Public Relations Society of America. Another one is the American Society of Association Executives. I really feel like everyone needs that. And then occasionally, challenging yourself to go a little bit farther. Take a college course, I recently did some executive education, and it's so stimulating, and it really gets you thinking and opens your eyes to new opportunities.
So important, I think. And I have been, over the years, have been part of professional organizations, and we're about to have a new professional fishing business organization.
I heard that.
But I also do I can go down the rabbit hole of an internet search for, how impressions are calculated on TikTok. You know what I mean? And before you know it, it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm watching, I'm 1,800 pages deep into socialmediaexaminer.com, so I kind of have to be careful about that.
Right.
But okay, back to RBFF. I love your, I'm going to try to say this, Vamos a Pescar. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Pescar. It's a Hispanic outreach program,
Mhm.
right? TakeMeFishing.org is kind of the consumer-facing part of RBFF, right?
Correct.
And then the Hispanic outreach is another site. What is the URL for it?
The Hispanic?
Yeah. Is it
It's just
vamosapescar.org?
vamosapescar.org.
Okay.
Or you can go to takemefishing.org and click on
Oh, that's right.
Spanish at the top.
Yeah. So it's basically the same content, but translated into Spanish.
Similar. One of the things we learned in creating that brand and in marketing to this multicultural audience is that it's not enough just to translate. They do what they call transcreate, right? The copy, the imagery, it needs to give a nod to their culture. Because as you know, like some things you can't directly translate, the meaning isn't the same. In fact, the name itself, this is kind of interesting. When we went to create the campaign, the reason we didn't just call it Take Me Fishing and we called it or translate Take Me Fishing is because culturally, Hispanics wouldn't be like, hey, take me fishing. I wanted it to be more welcoming, more like, hey, let's go. So vamos a pescar actually means let's go fishing.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool. So what has been your favorite project that you've worked on at RBFF?
Oh my gosh. There's been so much fun stuff over the years. You know, recently, I would say the women's campaign has been so much fun.
Yes.
We have a Women Making Waves campaign geared at getting more women involved in the sport. And we started it because the research was telling us that women are coming in droves. Actually, like 45% of newcomers every year are women, but they're dropping out at a really high rate too, mostly because they don't see themselves in the sport. Like literally, they don't see themselves in catalogs. They don't see themselves in advertisements. So we wanted to change that image and we want to empower women to do this. Like, hey, you don't need a guy to like, here, to learn how to tie these knots. Here's where you go to get your tackle. Like, Stephanie, this is what it looks like to be a female and go fishing.
I can't tell you how important that is. I think I'm a good bit older than you, but I grew up fishing with my dad every weekend. And I know this story, I've heard this story from so many women that after I got to be a certain age, probably around 13 or 14, I didn't fish anymore because I didn't see any women fishing. I didn't think it was for little girls and dudes, you know? Yeah. And so then when I got out of college and I started in my first job and I moved away and I lived in Dallas, I remember kind of having this longing to reconnect with that part that was so comforting to me because, you know, I had so many great experiences on the water with my dad. And I remember going up to I think it was Lake Grapevine, and I went down to the Academy store and went and bought a little rod and reel and literally went and walked along the lake and had no idea where to go, what to do. And when people talk about women, professional fishermen, professional angler, women professional anglers, I think that it's going to take a while for women to reach the same skill level as men, because men have done it all that time, and a lot of us didn't. We didn't do it all that time.
Right.
Some did, but not all of us.
No, and there's a natural drop off for both genders, really, in the 20s, and people come back to it, but probably even more for the women. So it's been a super fun campaign, and it's really energized the women in the industry to help us to get the word out. So
I love that.
That's been a really fun one.
I have one of your shirts that says "Not Afraid to Rock the Boat." I just wore it last weekend to the farmer's market, and I had 3 ladies stop me and go, "Oh my God, I love that shirt. Where'd you get that?" So, it's very, your messaging really resonates, I think. Yeah. But turning back to marketing now, how do you use anglers in your marketing efforts? I know you cross over freshwater, saltwater, different species, and I know you have a lot of relationships. So how do you use anglers?
We do. Well, we have a couple different ways that we work with anglers. You know, content creation has become really huge for us in the last couple of years. Getting the information out there that people are looking for, that will help get them interested in the sport. And really, there's no one better to do that than the folks who are doing it, right? And the professionals can offer a lot because they spend a lot of time on the water. They have a lot of experience with different types of people. So one way that we work with pro anglers is through our blog.
Mhm.
And right now we have, I think, 4 people blogging for us who have all have a lot of fishing experience. Maybe they weren't all like your traditional fishing pro, but they are all anglers. And then we also work with folks who we would consider social influencers, those who have a big following on social media that we can work with to get our message out to their followers. So that's kind of the 2 ways.
So let me ask you this about the influencers, because this is kind of a big discussion that I hear talked about a lot. What's more important, a large audience or an engaged audience?
It depends. It really depends. And that's been hard for me to learn too. I mean, the big audience is important, but if the engagement's not there, then it's not that important. Sometimes you can do better working with a micro influencer who has a much smaller, like a 2,000 or 3,000 following, but people are like gung ho, do everything they say kind of thing.
Right. I tell coaching clients that a lot because it can sometimes seem very daunting. The social media algorithms changed a few years ago, and the guys that got in before the change, their audience grew really fast. Yeah. And then the algorithms changed, and now it is really hard to grow your audience organically without, paying for to grow. But so I'm always like, the thing to focus on if you don't have a big audience is make sure you have an engaged audience. And that's pretty easy, because all it really means is when you start talking to someone and other people start talking back in the comments, the algorithms push your content up.
Right.
And so it becomes fairly, not easy, but not as hard to get that engagement.
Yeah, it is something that changes on the daily practically. And our strategy has evolved so much over time. We try to, we use different platforms for different things. We have different goals depending on what platform we're using and what we're trying to accomplish. One that's been rising lately as it refers people to our website, and this is kind of surprising, is Pinterest.
You're
Believe
kidding.
it or not.
Really?
It's just this last month, we had a huge spike in referrals from Pinterest because one of our articles about where to put the sinker on the line, this is for beginners now, got picked up and circulated all over the place. So,
well, yeah, I love that. And I tell you, you kind of, as an aside, said this is for beginners, but I'm telling you, that is a gold mine. Beginners is a gold mine. When I worked at Bass, one of the things that I always felt was that if you come to the Bassmaster website, you got to kind of already know, you got to already know a lot to really, understand what they're talking about, especially during tournament coverage. And so I also tell people that they should not forget that beginner, because that's a huge, and I think that's what has fueled the rise of these YouTube stars, is that they fish from the bank. And, they sneak into the neighborhood pond, and there's a lot of people out there doing that, fishing from the bank.
Yeah, when you're new to something, you want to go somewhere where you can get information and you don't feel intimidated, right?
Right.
And I think, sometimes they're not meaning to be, but the pro anglers can be intimidating to a newcomer.
Oh, for sure.
They've got all their technical equipment, they've got their shirts with the logos all over them, and it's like, ooh, I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to be embarrassed,
Right.
So, yeah.
That's good, though. I like that. How do you find the anglers that you work with?
Relationships. Yeah, relationships. But we also several times have put out a request for bids to the industry, just to get, stuff back from people to see what services people may offer, anglers may offer. And I think there's a huge opportunity here, because we've really struggled to find people who both know fishing and know marketing. There's a huge opportunity there. We need folks who understand, the basics of search engine optimization.
You need them to write for you.
To write for us.
With SEO in mind.
Yeah. We use SEO strategies. And so knowing how to place those keywords is really important to us. Being able to take a good picture and a decent video. Now, we're not talking about professional grade,
Right.
but better than, you know, I just traded in my flip phone and I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. No, I get that.
Some of those basic skills in marketing, I think, would help folks go a long way.
Agreed. Well, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying
Yeah.
to teach them. When you hire a writer and you are trying to optimize for some content for SEO, do you give them the keywords that you want to work with? Is that how that kind of works?
We do.
That's great.
We've gotten pretty sophisticated with our content, where we have an annual content calendar that drills down into different topics, and we get keywords based on what's being searched for each topic. So every month we go out to our bloggers with assignments and keywords.
That's great.
And
then do you also give them the things you want in the metadata, or do you all do that internally?
They draft it and then we edit as necessary.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But the other thing, I was talking about pictures too. You know, it's really helpful when they can provide a high quality image that's sized for Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook. You know, having those basic abilities is so valuable and helpful to us.
When someone sends you a picture that's like 20 megabytes big and hasn't really been sized or tweaked, you know, it just means work. It just means more work.
Exactly.
So if you can do that, that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, because I really believe there's a huge opportunity there. These folks just need some basic marketing skills, and they will be very valuable to a lot of brands.
I may need to do a quick class on how to optimize a photo for submitting to someone who's going to use it online. That's a good idea. I have to write that down.
I like it.
So I think the next thing I was going to ask you, we've kind of covered, but what are some of the qualities of the anglers that you work with and you go, I want to work with them again? What does that look like?
I think, aside from the things I've already said, which are really more skills based, just people who are open and honest and willing to try new things with us. You know, in the social world, things change all the time, and we've certainly changed our strategy over the years. We have a couple bloggers who've been with us for years, and the reason they've been with us for years is because they've been willing to adapt from, you know, initially our blog was just writing, and it was great, and it was storytelling. But when we implemented this SEO strategy, it became very different. So, you know, we like working with people that have relationships in the industry and have access to things, you know, access to photography, access to video, access to other people they can interview for blogs. That's a plus. And yeah, just some basic marketing skills.
Do you ever get pitched?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Because I would think that, especially since your mission is bringing new people into the sport, I would think people that are out in the field and going to the boat ramp every weekend or, you know, a couple days a week would have some really good insight for you on some content that could help that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not trying to tell everybody to pitch Stephanie, but
it's a daily. It's okay.
But really, anybody that's doing content for their sponsor or even themselves would be well served, as we said earlier, to not forget about the people who are trying to learn and who are just coming into the sport. And if you could create content around that reaches that person, it's going to be a home run no matter who it's for, I think.
Yeah. And I think one thing I'd like to add, that maybe you didn't ask me this directly, but as it's in the same vein of our conversation, you know, do your homework before you do pitch someone. Find out what they're about, find out who their target audience is. We do get approached by pro anglers on a regular basis, and you know, what they're putting in front of us doesn't really match our strategy. We are going to newcomers. We want someone who's the down-to-earth dad that can teach a kid to fish, or, you know, or the mom. Mm-hmm. We don't need the technical side of it. We don't need, you know, so that's specific to us, but do your homework on the brand and be able to approach them with numbers too.
Right.
This is my reach in the social media space. This is, you know.
Yep. And also I would say, know that when you go to someone like you, and really almost everybody anymore, nobody's just looking to get their logo out there.
Yeah.
And there's a big understanding about that. People think I'm on TV a lot, or I'm on the internet a lot, and so you should want to put your logo on my shirt. But really, nobody's looking for that.
Right. There's no value in that to us, anyways.
All right, that's right. Not when it's just scattershot. You're much more targeted in your efforts and how you spend your money, and it makes sense. And you're smart, and that's why you have gotten to where you are. So, all right. Well, up to this point, we're going to take a break. But up until this point, is there anything I should have asked you that I wasn't smart enough or didn't know enough to ask?
Oh, heck, you're smart enough. I don't think so. I think I got all my major points across in terms of how we work with anglers. We welcome more anglers to work with us. Like I said, we just need some of those basic marketing skills to make it a more beneficial relationship.
Well, I'm fixing to teach y'all some basic marketing skills. So, all right, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back with Stephanie Vatalaro. I really want to hear from you to know what kind of questions you have and how I can serve you best in this podcast. The easiest place to reach me is probably at Facebook or Instagram, where you can find me as Fishing Business Podcast, or on YouTube, but you'll have to search for me there by typing in Fishing Business Podcast. Holla! All right, we're back on the Fishing Business Podcast, and this is my favorite part of the podcast. I hope you've stayed through to the end, because this is always the fun part. So, quick questions for you. Your first job. What was your first job?
Like very first job ever?
Yeah,
okay. Just out of high school, I worked at Eckerd Drugstore in the pharmacy.
I remember that brand, Eckerd. They're not around anymore, are they?
No, they got bought up by CVS.
I remember that.
I was the cashier in the back filling prescriptions.
That's a great first job. My first job was at Dairy Queen.
Oh, I like that.
Yes, I started walking. You couldn't work until you were 15. I think you had to be 15 to get a permit, but you could get special permission from your parents to work at 14. And there was a Dairy Queen within walking distance. And I wanted to save money for a beach trip, because I had older girlfriends that were going to the beach, and not by themselves, but I so badly wanted to be included that I begged my parents, because of course they said, nope, we're not giving you money to go to the beach. So I said, please I'll go work at the Dairy Queen. And I did, and it was a great experience. Okay, your favorite COVID binge watch?
Oh, so I wouldn't say it's a particular show. I have a 9-year-old who's been home and bored to death, and we have been watching Disney Plus like nobody's business. We have seen every animated movie. We have seen Hamilton. We have seen anything new they premiere. We've seen it.
Do you know all the words to all the Frozen songs?
Oh, of course.
That's what I figured. Okay, well, that's good. I love that. So that's family. You've spent a lot of, and I think, we've all talked about how there's been some good things that have come out of the COVID crisis, and one of them has been, I think, the opportunity to spend more family time, and and that's got to be. I know you have to love that.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're doing things we didn't do regularly as a family before. We're playing board games, and we had a water balloon fight in the backyard. She's an only child, so we have to get right in there with her, and we did. It was fun.
That will keep you going. Now, you also did have the neighborhood chalk drawing?
Oh my gosh, how amazing was that?
That was pretty cool. Her neighborhood's a child. Tell the story.
So I was walking the dog, and the street across from us, somebody got the chalk out and started creating these drawings that were like an obstacle course. So you had to the arrow would be like, go this way and then jump over this. And it literally went down the whole street. Every family came out and added onto it for their section. And it was just the coolest, most inspiring thing I've seen.
It was very, very cool. I loved that. And I had to think that the family that started it, I think they had to have an artist in the family.
The mom was an art teacher.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
Oh, it was so cool. Last thing you listened to in your earbuds?
The last thing I listened to in my earbuds, I might have to look it up. I listen to a lot of music, and I'm very, it's all over the place.
Oh, that's great. I love that. But not podcasts, huh?
Oh, podcasts? Oh, yeah. I listen to, oh, shoot, what's the name of it? It's Brene Brown.
Oh my
Has a
gosh.
podcast. I love her.
Oh, she is amazing.
Yeah.
So insightful. I'm so grateful for having discovered Brene Brown. I can't remember the name of her podcast either.
I know, I can't, it's escaping me, but
Yeah, but oh gosh, it's
that's
fantastic.
probably the one I've been listening to the most since
Yeah,
we've been home.
me too. Okay, so who's your real life hero?
Oh my goodness.
Brene Brown?
Brene Brown. No, this might sound funny, but it's my grandmother.
Oh, I love that.
I was thinking about this, and you would think I would say my mother, but and she's fantastic too. My grandmother on my father's side was just an amazing human being. She lived till she was 94, Irish lass, red hair, whiskey drinking, and she just, the more I learn about her life, she really just persevered through everything. There's this story of her during the Depression. My grandfather was gone. He was at the war, and she had 3 kids at home, and someone kept coming to her porch in the middle of the night and just like lurking around on the porch in the dark. And she got sick of it. It was freaking her out. It was freaking the kids out. So she takes a shotgun and walks down the street. She had someone stay with the kids. There's a bar. And she walks into this room of men drinking. This is back, way back, and says, I know one of you is coming to my house and walking around on the porch. And I want you to know that I have this gun and I know how to use it.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Marched herself back home, and nobody ever came and did it again.
Wow, that is.
And that's just her spirit. Like
Yeah.
There's so many other stories like that. And she's amazing.
That's great. I love that. I love that. Now, I'm just going to pause here and make a point to our listeners and viewers that what Stephanie did right there was tell you so much about herself and her philosophy and what she cares about in life by wrapping it into a story. And that's the most incredible way to make a point, is by storytelling. Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we all got to get better at. And that's
I didn't know I was doing that, but yeah, I agree.
But you did. You just naturally did it. And that, I really preach a lot about storytelling and how important that is. And you just gave us a beautiful, beautiful example of that. So here's to Grandma. And thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time a lot, Stephanie.
Thank you. It was really great to catch up and talk marketing with you. I'm looking forward to what's to come.
Yes. Thanks again, Stephanie. Boy, y'all, I am just blown away by her. What a good communicator. All right, here's my 3 key takeaways from that conversation. And there were a lot of nuggets there. Number 1, understand a brand's target audience before you approach them. Whether you're looking for a sponsorship or an opportunity to create content for someone, take the time to research who they're trying to reach so you can show that you're a good fit for them, and you can come with thought starters on how you can talk to the audience that they're interested in. Number 2, understand search engine optimization. If you're going to write for a partner, it's really important to understand how they want search engines to find their content and what keywords are important to them. This can go a long way in getting your content discovered, and we all know how important that is. I'm going to do a training on SEO, or search engine optimization, for you soon, and that'll help you along these lines with this one. All right, number 3, deliver quality content for your partners in the right format. Know what image sizes and resolution that they need. Be familiar with that. Find out before you deliver for them. Get good at taking pictures, get good at capturing good audio, get good at video. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up today. Please go out and rate and review this podcast wherever you're watching, whether it's on a podcast platform or YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review. It really will help me keep this content going and the information flowing out to you. All right, and we're done here today, but I'm going to sign off the way my favorite fisherman always signed off on his show, The Fishing Hole, by saying this is dedicated to Dad because he always had time to take me fishing. See you next time, y'all.